time, I ask that myself and my team be allowed to introduce ourselves.
I'll have that done just before opening statements.
Yes, Your Honor. First, I ask that myself, my co-counsel, and opposing counsel be allowed to move freely about the well of the courtroom.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. I will allow you to do that. However, again, I caution you, whenever you walk away from the podium, please keep your voice to a level that everyone from the back of the courtroom, clear up to the front, can hear you at all times. Should that be a problem, I will bring it to your attention and ask you to adjust your voices accordingly.
Yes, Your Honor. I now move that the stipulations be entered into evidence as they've been agreed upon by both parties before the trial.
All right. They were agreed upon at pre-trial. The court at this time will admit these stipulations and take judicial notice of them. You may take those into consideration as you conduct yourselves during the trial in your examination and cross-examination of witnesses.
Your Honor, the plaintiff has prepared exhibit binders complete with the stipulations for Your Honor as well as opposing counsel. These are simply for the convenience of the court, and they will not be presented to the witness stand or to the jurors today. We will individually provide copies to the witness stand upon admitting each exhibit into evidence, as well as publishing to the jury upon admittance of each exhibit.
All right. So ordered.
Finally, Your Honor, today we have a records keeper. Will he be allowed to publish to the jury upon admittance of each exhibit?
What you'll do is you'll, once I admit the exhibit, give one to the witness and then give one to, the original to my bailiff and my bailiff to me. We're not going to be giving each individual exhibit to each individual trial judge.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, save for introductions of the team, the plaintiff is ready to proceed.
All right. Let me just make one more announcement before we do that. Go ahead and proceed. When your name is called as a witness, if you will approach just to the podium, my bailiff will come around and give you the oath as a witness, and then you'll take the witness chair to my right. He will adjust the microphone if necessary or assist the court in any way that I direct him to do that. Are there any other preliminary matters to be brought to the attention of the court before we initiate the opening statements of counsel? From the plaintiff first. Anything further?
Nothing further, Your Honor, just besides introductions.
All right. From the defense?
Your Honor, the defense would also like to request the ability to introduce ourselves before opening statements.
Yes, I'll have you do that at this point in time, so that it's not counted as part of your time during the opening statement. So, all right. At this time then, unless there's anything further from either side, I'll have plaintiff's counsel start with the introduction of plaintiff people, and then I'll have the defense counsel introduce the defense persons, and then we'll have your opening statement.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. My name is Avery Hindell, and I represent Jesse Lannister, and this is my co-counsel.
My name is Emma Donahue. I represent Jesse Lannister, and this is my co-counsel.
My name is Maggie Murphy. I also represent Jesse Lannister, and this is our records keeper.
My name is Cole Wyrick, and I am the records keeper for the plaintiff, and these are our witnesses.
My name is Jesse Anderson, and I am Jesse Lannister.
My name is Kelly Castile, and I am Val Gray.
My name is Kira Locker, and I am Dr. Penn Everett.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. My name is Logan Schofield, and today my co-counsel and I represent Kai Connolly. I will be conducting the defense's opening statement and the cross-examination of Val Gray.
My name is Ronan Locker, and I'll be conducting the cross-examination of Penn Everett and the direct examination of Dr. Drew Ellis.
My name is Morgan Meyer, and I'll be conducting the cross-examination of Jesse Lannister in the closing argument.
My name is Katie Turner, and I will be conducting the direct examination of Cameron Myers and the direct examination of Kai Conley.
My name is Maggie Hazelrick, and I am Kai Conley.
My name is Kennedy Patterson, and I am Cameron Myers.
My name is Emily Carr, and I am Dr. Drew Ellis.
Thank you all. We will formally start in CJ 2017-747, Jesse Lannister, individually and as personal representative of the estate of Hannah Lannister, plaintiff, versus Kai Conley as defendant. This matter is coming out for trial at this time. The plaintiff may proceed with your opening statement.
It was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was adding insult to injury. It was the final insult. Members of the jury, imagine, if you will, the story I'm about to tell you. Imagine you're back in high school and it's your junior year, and more than anything, you want to make the basketball team. Your father, Jesse Lannister, is nothing but supportive, and you work hard all summer to achieve your goal. And when tryouts come around, you make the team, and your father is so proud of you and you're so happy. But the other girls on the team, they're not so excited. You see, you took their friend's spot on the team. And according to Kai Conley, a girl you had known since elementary school, that can't go unpunished. And for the next month, every day, your life becomes a living hell. Kai and her pack of wolves attack you every day. They follow you everywhere. Kai sends you text messages. She posts about you on a school website. She tells you no one likes you. Get off the court. Get off the team. What name will they call you today? What will they say about you at school today? You feel the stress and anxiety so deeply that your chest hurts. You feel the emotional pain so deeply that it takes a physical toll on your body. So you decide to get help. You talk to your principal, Val Gray. But things just get worse. Kai is even angrier that you tried to get help. And the attacks keep coming and coming until the final insult. Your team just played a big game, but you were distracted. It wasn't your best performance because of everything going on at school. And as you're walking into the locker room and reflecting on the past month of pain, you open your locker to see a noose around the neck of a stuffed animal marked with your jersey number, staring you in the face. This is the last thing that you'll ever see. Your life ends in a state of depression, humiliation, anxiety, and disgrace. This is the story of Hannah Lannister and how she fell victim to Kai Conley and her pack of wolves. Hannah Lannister suffered a heart attack due to the stress of constant bullying on November 11th of 2016. Now the plaintiff bears the burden of proof in today's case. We must prove our claims by a preponderance of the evidence, simply more likely than not. And today we bring you two claims. And the first claim is wrongful death. Kai Conley's gross misconduct caused Hannah's tragic and preventable death. Dr. Penn Everett will explain to you today that there was no evidence of an underlying heart condition found in Hannah Lannister's autopsy. However, there was evidence of a massive release of stress hormones at the time that Hannah saw that noose hanging in her locker. This brings us to our second claim, that Kai Conley intentionally inflicted emotional distress upon Hannah Lannister. This is clear in Kai's reckless text messages, her outrageous posts about Hannah on that school website, and her uncivilized conduct in the hallways of Winchester High School. Today, the defense expert, Dr. Drew Ellis, will admit that Kai's behavior was crass, depraved, and went beyond simple teasing. Both experts agree today that this was serious and intentional bullying. You will hear evidence today that Hannah wrote in her diary the day before she died. Kai is killing me every day. This is direct evidence of the emotional distress Hannah was experiencing before her death. At the end of today's trial, my co-counsel will speak to you, and she will ask you to hold Kai Conley accountable for her actions. She will also implore you to award punitive damages, to send a message to Kai Conley and her community that this conduct will not be tolerated in our society, and that no one should ever have to lose their life to the stress of constant bullying. Thank you.
If you have a device in your pocket in the back of the courtroom, if you would make sure that all devices are turned off. I don't care if you have vibrate on, just don't smile at us, but turn the devices off so that they don't create a distraction during the trial. With that, thank you. We'll have the opening statement of the defense.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the jury, today you will hear one set of facts, but two different stories. It is a fact that Hannah Lannister died on the evening of November 11th, 2016 from cardiac arrest. However, the plaintiff's story is not true. Members of the jury, my name is Logan Schofield, and today my co-counsel and I will show you that Kai Conley did not cause Hannah Lannister to die. Now, the plaintiff, Jesse Lannister, has sued Kai Conley, alleging that Miss Conley is liable for intentional infliction of emotional distress and the wrongful death of his daughter, Hannah. However, Kai Conley will tell you today that she considered Hannah to be a friend, and that she truly never meant Hannah any harm. Miss Conley will tell you that she believed that Hannah was in on the jokes, laughing alongside everyone else involved. Kai Conley did not want Hannah Lannister to die. Jesse Lannister will take the stand today, and you will hear that he pushed his daughter to join the basketball team throughout the summer of 2016. You will hear today that Hannah was being piled with stress from training for the team to the rigors of the conditioning schedule. And you will hear today that Hannah Lannister never complained to her father about the alleged harassment taking place at school. Miss Val Gray, the principal of Winchester High School, will also take the stand today. You will hear today that she characterized the alleged harassment taking place as just some teasing and slight name-calling. You will see today that Hannah herself specified that there were several people involved in this teasing and in this name-calling, but that Kai Conley was the only person ever to be investigated, blamed, or punished. Now, from the defense today, Ms. Cameron Myers will take the stand. She is the certified athletic trainer for the Raiding Danes basketball team, and she will tell you today about the 2016 season, about how through every game and through every physical that she performed on Hannah, she never once saw an indication of a cardiac condition. The fact that Hannah showed no signs of a condition lines up perfectly with Dr. Drew Ellis's opinion in today's case. Dr. Ellis is the defense's medical expert, and her research shows today that Hannah Lannister died a sudden, unexpected death due to an underlying heart abnormality. She will go on to tell you that deaths like these account for the most common cause of death among hard-working young athletes. She will explain today that most sufferers of sudden, unexpected death show no symptoms until cardiac arrest occurs, just like Hannah Lannister. Dr. Ellis will tell you today that Hannah Lannister's death had nothing to do with bullying. Members of the jury, remember that the facts that will be presented today may be true, but the plaintiff's allegations of intentional infliction of emotional distress and wrongful death are not. Members of the jury, listen to the facts, the evidence, and the experts. Do not fall for the sensationalization of a young girl's sudden death. Members of the jury, listen to the truth. The defense is confident today that when you consider the evidence that will be presented, you will find that Kai Connolly is not liable for intentional infliction of emotional distress and is not responsible for the wrongful death of Hannah Lannister. Thank you.
Again, for the timekeepers, if there's more than a 15-second discrepancy, please bring that to my attention. With that, timekeepers are ready. We'll go ahead and have the prosecution planning for your first witness.
The plaintiff calls Jesse Lannister to the stand.
Do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Please take the stand.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Once you're seated, you may proceed.
Please state your name for the court.
My name is Jesse Lannister.
Mr. Lannister, where do you work?
I am currently retired from the Oklahoma City Police Department.
What have you been doing in your retirement?
Well, since my retirement, I planned on spending the rest of my days with my family, going on the vacations that were left on my bucket list, and continuing to pursue my newfound passion for photography with my daughter, Hannah. But I unfortunately don't get to do any of that.
Mr. Lannister, why don't you have the ability to do that anymore?
My daughter, Hannah, she passed away not too long after my retirement.
So before we proceed, Mr. Lannister, I just want to say how truly sorry I am for your loss. Can't imagine what it must be like to lose a child.
Thank you.
But I do want to talk about the relationship between you and Hannah. What was that like for you two?
It was amazing. I mean, Hannah and I were really close. We were like the best of friends. As I said, I was a police officer most of her life. And I had some really rough days. I saw some terrible things that I hope that nobody else ever has to see. But I always knew coming home at the end of the day that Hannah would know exactly what to do to be able to cheer me up. I mean, her smile was so beautiful, and I like to say that she was the light to my darkest days.
Mr. Lannister, what were some activities that you and Hannah enjoyed doing together?
Well, Hannah and I were both big basketball fans, and we loved the Oklahoma City Thunder. If we weren't watching one of their games, then we would be out on the driveway playing basketball. Our favorite game to play was called horse. She really liked to play horse. And like I said, we had recently picked up photography, and we had huge plans. We plan on traveling this country and taking photos of God's beautiful creations.
So you mentioned that you and Hannah enjoyed basketball. Did Hannah play basketball her sophomore year of high school?
No, unfortunately, Hannah wasn't the tallest teenager, and so she decided to be a manager her sophomore year. She was happy with that at the time.
What about her junior year? Did she play then?
She did. One evening we were watching a game, a Thunder basketball game, and Hannah mentioned that she never thought that she would ever be anything more than a manager. And at that point, I stood up and I started going on a tirade about how Lannisters do not fail, and that if Hannah, if she had a goal or a dream in mind, that I would be right there alongside her to help her accomplish it, no matter what it was. And so we prepped, and she tried out for basketball her junior year.
So how did you prepare for these tryouts?
Well, that evening, after we had our conversation, we went outside and we started practicing right then. I remember it so vividly. We didn't stop until the sweat was pouring down our foreheads. That night, we went inside, and after eating my wife Tracy's delicious spaghetti, it was Hannah's favorite meal, we sat down and we made a list of goals for Hannah to accomplish, things for her to work on to get ready for tryouts. It consisted of things like making 500 shots or dribbling for an hour. But at the bottom of the list, what I believe was most important, the end goal, was to make the basketball team, in all caps, bigger than everything else on the list. And so she worked all summer. She was up some mornings before I even got my morning coffee. And she worked, and she worked hard.
So, Mr. Lannister, did you attend these high school basketball tryouts?
Yeah. It was the biggest day of her high school career. I wanted to be there for her. We had worked so hard, and I wanted to be there to support her. I would like to say I was her number one supporter.
So what happened at these tryouts?
Well, after the tryouts progressed and ended, the coaches announced who would be on the team her junior year, and they announced her name, and I was so proud of Hannah. We'd worked so hard, and this was, like I said, the ultimate end goal, and she accomplished it. And after she accomplished it, some of the other people there, some of the other teammates, they kind of talked down to Hannah and said some not so nice things to her. But at the time, I just thought it was new team banter. But looking back, I know that it was a lot more than that.
Well, you said you saw this treatment by the basketball team to Hannah. So based on what you saw, did that affect her disposition towards basketball in any way?
Well, not initially. Hannah was still the bright, smart, beautiful girl that I knew. But it wasn't until after she was announced as a starter, something that I was so proud of her for, that she wasn't proud of herself for. And at that moment, I knew that something had to be up, something a lot bigger than I could have imagined.
So, Mr. Lannister, was there anything else going on at this point in Hannah's life that you saw that contributed to this behavior change?
Well, after having a couple of years to think about it, the only thing that I can think of is that soon around that time, her favorite band member, Alex Snow was his name, from the band Heisenberg, had passed away. And Hannah took this pretty rough, but I talked her through it and I answered all the questions she had because I was the lead investigator on that case. And so we addressed that and had that handled, but how she took that was nothing compared to what she was taking at school.
So
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of personal knowledge. Mr. Lannister is not aware of what Hannah may or may not have been going through at school.
may I respond, Your Honor? Pursuant to Rule 702B, this witness is allowed to testify as to his rationally based perception of his knowledge of the situation, and that's all that he is doing today in court, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I respond? While the witness is allowed to testify to his rationally based perception, he has already testified as to the extent of what he witnessed Hannah enduring at school, which was at the tryouts. He may not testify about other situations that were occurring at Winchester High.
May I respond, Your Honor?
That's fine.
He is attesting to, exactly as opposing counsel referenced, he is attesting to what he saw specifically at these basketball tryouts. That is what he saw in this situation. Therefore, he is utilizing his rationally based perception as to this situation he perceived in his daughter.
I'm going to overrule the objection. I'm going to allow the witness to testify based on his personal observations. May I proceed?
Would you like me to repeat the question, Mr. Lannister?
Yes, please.
So, based on what you saw, were there any other things going on in Hannah's life at this time that could have contributed to that behavior change that you mentioned?
Outside of Alex Snow passing away, there was nothing else I could think of besides what was going on at school.
Finally, Mr. Lannister, how has Hannah's death affected your family?
Hannah's death hasn't just affected my family. Hannah's death has completely destroyed the Lannister household. My wife, Tracy, left me right after Hannah's funeral. And my 3 other kids, all adults, went back to their lives in different states, and we don't talk at all. I can't bear to watch a Thunder game, and as far as I'm aware, nobody's played a game of horse on the driveway. But I think that the worst part of this entire thing I can't even begin to describe the soul-crushing pain that I have to feel every time that I have to think about burying my daughter, my baby. And so I've made it my life's mission to do what I can to educate others on what bullying can do,
Objection, Your
and
Honor.
to
Relevance.
May I respond, Your Honor? He's attesting to how this has affected his family and himself. Under these claims that we are presented today, we are supposed to prove damages, not necessarily the monetary value of those damages, but he is attesting to how how Hannah's death has affected his life and how he has changed the course of his life because of this, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I respond? While I do not object to Mr. Lannister testifying to the effect of Hannah's death on his family, as that is relevant in court today, testifying about his efforts in anti-bullying is not relevant, as it does not make a case at hand more or less probable.
Any further?
Yes, Your Honor. Because Hannah's death had changed his life and he had to change his life according to that, he is testifying as to how this affected himself as well as his family, Your Honor.
Anything else?
Yes, Your Honor. Hannah Lannister's death, while it was tragic and did negatively impact his family life, as we've seen, it would not have caused him to, directly to join anti-bullying organizations, and it's not relevant to testify to those organizations in court today.
I'm going to overrule the objection. I'll find the line of testimony relevant. You may proceed.
So, Mr. Lannister, what are you doing now because of Hannah's death?
Well, like I said, I've made it my life's mission to do what I can to educate others on the effects that bullying can have on families and on kids. So that way, hopefully, nobody else ever has to bury their child because of it.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Lannister.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I proceed?
May
Mr. Lannister, I want to start off by saying how very sorry I am for the loss of your daughter.
Thank you.
But we all are here to find out the truth of what happened to Hannah, so I am going to have to ask you some questions today, okay?
Okay.
Now, Hannah was a big fan of the band Heisenberg, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
Now, as you testified on direct, Alex Snow was her favorite band member.
Yes, I believe so.
And you worked on the investigation into Mr. Snow's death, correct?
Correct. I was the lead investigator on that case.
in your opinion, you didn't do a very good job of separating work from home life during this time, did you, sir?
I don't think that I may have done the best job, but nobody's perfect
Right.
in our house.
But you did talk to Hannah about the death of Mr. Snow for months, correct?
That's correct. Hannah took the death very difficult, and she asked a lot of questions, and since I had the answers, I wanted to help her work through this and answer the questions that she had.
Yes, sir. Now, you were teased in high school, weren't you?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance under Rule 401.
Yes, Your Honor. This goes directly to Mr. Lannister's credibility, and credibility is always relevant.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Sir? Oh, yes, Your Honor. Once again, this does go to the witness's credibility, as if he was teased in high school and he has testified about his participation in anti-bullying organizations. Since he is in court today suing Kai Connolly for intentional infliction of emotional distress, bullying, then his credibility in this matter is relevant.
May I respond, Your Honor? Whether or not he was teased in high school has no effect on any of the claims in today's case. It doesn't make the fact of the case more or less probable, yes, that's it, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Lannister, you understand that teasing is just a part of being a teenager, correct?
When I was young, I would have been led to believe that, but when I was in school, it stopped at the door at the end of the day. Nowadays, like Hannah, she has to endure that 24/7 on the phone and elsewhere.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Lannister, but was that a yes or a no to my question? In your opinion, is teasing a part of being a teenager?
I would have believed so, yes.
So yes?
Yes.
Now, nearly every day you asked Hannah how she was doing, correct?
Correct. Like I
And
said, I
You never
cared about
heard
her and I
any
wanted to know how
negative
she was
things?
doing.
You never heard any negative things from her?
No, not much. Like most teenagers that I'm aware of, they don't really open up about what happens at their school day, but I was still there for her and still asked her about it.
But she just seemed like she was going through normal teenage stuff to you, right?
At times.
Now, as you testified on direct, when Hannah told you she didn't think she could make the basketball team, you got pretty upset, didn't you?
Well, I wouldn't say I got upset. I just wanted her to know that if she had a goal in mind and had a dream, then I'd be right there with her to help her achieve it.
But Mr. Lannister, isn't it true that when she told you that, you jumped off the couch and you went on a tirade?
Yeah, a tirade about how if she has a goal or a dream in mind, that the only way that she cannot achieve that is to not try.
More specifically, a tirade about how Lannisters do not fail, right?
Correct. Like I said, I believe that as long as you give it your all and give it your best, then you do not fail.
And you turned off the Thunder game during the playoffs to make sure she was listening, right?
Yes, I wanted her undivided attention, so I wish she was listening. Sometimes teenagers don't always listen to their parents.
Yeah. And then the two of you went outside to practice.
That's correct.
And you practiced for hours and hours until the sweat poured down your foreheads, right?
Yes.
And then the two of you went inside and you sat at the kitchen table.
Yes, we did.
And then you guys made a list.
A list of goals, yes.
A list of specific goals, like make 500 shots or dribble up and down the driveway for an hour.
Correct. These were the types of things on there.
And at the bottom of the list, the most important part was make the basketball team in big letters.
Correct. It was the most important, and I wanted it to stand out.
And Hannah had to complete each of the goals on this list every day in order to train to make the basketball team, right?
That is the goal that she set for herself, and so I was there to support her in that decision.
Right, so that's a yes to meet that end goal.
Correct. For her to make the basketball team.
And whenever you guys finished creating this list, you made copies of it?
Yes, and then I laminated them and posted them because I talked to her about how important it was to visualize her goals.
Right, you put these copies up all around the house to make sure that Hannah would see them.
That's correct.
To make sure that she would be motivated, right?
Yes.
And she was. She worked on this every single day after that. Isn't that right, Mr. Lannister?
To my knowledge, she put it in her all, and she worked really hard. I was really proud.
And like you said earlier, some mornings you would hear her practicing before you had your morning cup of coffee.
That's correct. She always took initiative, and she showed it here as well.
And she worked on this every day due to your guys' talk that day, right?
Due in part, but I think that was just the extra motivator that she needed to get started on her training.
Right, that was the catalyst.
I guess you could call it that.
Thank you, Mr. Lannister. No further questions at this time.
Your Honor.
None, Your Honor.
Thank you. Your testimony, sir. This time, plaintiff prosecution may call your second witness.
Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Val Gray to the stand.
Do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
May I proceed, Your Honor? Please state your name for the court.
My name is Val Gray.
Ms. Gray, how are you employed?
I'm a principal at Winchester High School.
So what's your role as the principal of Winchester?
Well, first and foremost is to give my students an education in a safe environment and lead them to success after high school.
So Ms. Gray, how are you involved in today's case?
Well, I know Kai Conley, as she's been a student of mine for a couple of years. I also knew Hannah Lannister for quite a while before she passed away. And I also initiated an investigation for Hannah's bullying and harassment report form through the school.
So what did this investigation of the bullying report entail?
Of course, it involved looking at that form, looking at some social media messages, talking to Hannah, interviewing Kai herself, and also talking to some of Hannah's teachers and coaches on occasion.
So first let's talk about Hannah's report form. Would you recognize that if you saw it today in court?
Yes, I would.
Permission to approach the witness for purposes of identification? Let the record reflect I'm showing opposing counsel a copy.
Record shall so reflect.
Would Your Honor like a copy? Ms. Gray, I handed you what was marked as Exhibit 4. Can you tell us, what is this document?
This is Hannah's bullying and harassment report form.
Are you familiar with this document?
Yes, I am.
And how are you familiar with this document?
Well, as an administrator, I make this document and make it available to all my students who feel they're being bullied and need some help from teachers. And whenever I receive these documents back, I look over it very thoroughly, as we take this quite serious at Winchester. And then I make an investigation from there and also file it.
So are you a custodian of this record?
Yes, I am.
And does it appear true and accurate to the best of your recollection?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, I now move that Exhibit 4 be entered into evidence as its authenticity has been stipulated.
Response?
There are no objections, Your Honor.
Court will admit Exhibit 4.
Ms. Gray, what was the nature of the bullying that Hannah reported on this document?
Well, Kai was bullying Hannah at every angle, every chance that she had. You know, it was in school, it was on her phone, through social media, ArtX, and through text messaging as well.
How often was this bullying taking place?
Hannah reports that it was nearly every day.
And who did Hannah name as the bully?
She specifically and only named Kai Connolly.
So what about this document concerned you?
As an educator and someone knew Hannah for a while, this whole document concerns me. And in high school, a lot of kids don't like to come forward and confront bullying. So the fact that she even made a report is really outstanding to me. But specifically, Hannah states, "It hasn't stopped and I can't get away. I feel helpless." And reading that, it's heartbreaking. To know that one of my students was going through this type of pain, and from one of my other students nonetheless, it was outstanding to read.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Yes, Your Honor. Under the claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress, Ms. Gray's testimony of the nature of the bullying and the extent of the bullying just goes to further prove this claim.
Your Honor, may I respond? I am not objecting to Ms. Gray's testimony about the extent of the alleged bullying. I'm objecting to the fact that she is inserting her own feelings into that testimony, Your Honor. Her feelings about this alleged bullying are not relevant in today's case.
Response, Your Honor? Under Rule 701B, any witness is allowed to give their rationally based perception as to their opinion. In this case, Ms. Gray is giving her opinion of the bullying that Hannah received, which is relevant in today's case, again, under the claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Your Honor, may I respond? To qualify under Rule 701, she must also show that she must show that she has specialized knowledge in this area, and as she does not have specialized knowledge in the area of knowing what it feels like or inserting her own feelings into bullying endeavors, she may not testify to her feelings regarding this bullying.
May I respond, Your Honor? Under Rule 701C, the only exception is that a witness must not explain anything containing scientific knowledge, which Ms. Gray is not. Under Rule 701A, it must be to help the jury better understand what she is trying to explain, which in this case it is showing the extent of the bullying, again, under that second claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress. And then again, under 701B, any witness is allowed to give their rationally based perception.
May I respond, Your Honor? It is not relevant for Ms. Gray to give her testimony on how she feels about what she believes Ms. Hannah Lannister was experiencing. It is irrelevant in today's case for her to give her feelings about how this is. Her feelings do not make any weight in today's case.
I'm going to overrule the objection. You may proceed.
Ms. Gray, would you like me to re-ask the question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so what specifically concerned you on this document?
Everything, really. But specifically, Hannah states, "It hasn't stopped and I can't get away. I feel helpless." And knowing that one of my students, Kai, was giving this type of harm to my student, it was just heartbreaking and terrible to know that that was happening under my care and in my school.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Earlier, you mentioned that you investigated RDEX as a part of this investigation of the bullying report. Could you first explain what is RDEX?
Raising Dane's Idea Exchange, or what we call RDEX at school, is a social media platform specifically designed for Winchester High, so our students and staff can communicate.
Would you recognize the messages you reviewed if you saw them today in court?
Yes, I would.
Permission to approach the witness for purposes of identification.
Grant.
Let the record reflect I'm showing opposing counsel a copy.
Just to reflect.
Thank you.
Would Your Honor like a copy?
I do.
Ms. Gray, I handed you what was marked as Exhibit 6. Can you tell us what is this document?
These are messages from RDEX to and about Hannah.
And are you familiar with these messages?
Yes, I am.
And again, how are you familiar?
Well, I reviewed these. They were a big part in my investigation and gave me all the evidence I needed about the amount and the extent of bullying from Kai towards Hannah.
Your Honor, I now move that Exhibit 6 be admitted into evidence as its authenticity has been stipulated.
Response?
No objections, Your Honor.
Court will admit Exhibit 6.
So, Ms. Gray, in reviewing these RDEX messages, what did you find?
Wow, I found a lot of unacceptable messages from Kai towards Hannah. And a lot of these messages showed the intent to harm. They were unacceptable, they were uncivilized, and we don't condone any types of these messages at Winchester. They were very shocking and disappointing to read as an educator.
Ms. Gray, what proportion of the comments about Hannah were made by Kai Conley?
1/3 of these hateful messages were made by Kai towards Hannah.
And what was the next highest proportion from any one student?
Only 1/6.
So, could you refer to page 2 of this exhibit? If you could please read the first line, the first complete post by TM student 579.
Nice at 247.
And who is this student referring to by at 247?
Kai. That was Kai Conley's screen name on RDEX.
And from this exchange, what could you conclude?
This definitely proved to me the impressionable young minds of high school students. I mean, when you're in high school, you want to be liked. You jump on the bandwagon often when you see a group of people doing something.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance and speculation.
May I respond, Your Honor? This again goes to the claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress. Ms. Gray is explaining the extent of the bullying on RDEX.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
Ms. Gray is speculating to the beliefs of high school students, and not only that, she is implying that these students felt this way specifically in these messages.
May I respond, Your Honor? We have laid foundation that Ms. Gray has experience in investigating bullying as she is the principal of Winchester High School. Furthermore, she is again testifying to a rationally based perception of these messages, which is acceptable under Rule 701B.
Your Honor, may I respond? Although Ms. Gray does have experience in investigating bullying and as a principal, she may not testify to what is going on inside of another person's mind, which is exactly what she is doing in court today.
May I respond, Your Honor?
I'm going to overrule the objection. She's commenting on an admitted exhibit in the context therein, so I'm going to allow it. Proceed.
Ms. Gray, would you like to finish your answer?
Yes, please. As an educator who sees and deals with bullying quite a lot, unfortunately, this definitely shows just an exchange between high school students where they want to be liked and they jump on a bandwagon. And here this kind of is like a wolf pack, I guess you could say, where Kai is the leader. She's the alpha, leading all these other students to attack and bully Hannah at every angle and chance that they had.
So after seeing this on RDEX, what steps did you take?
Well, first I suspended Kai, of course, as that was the only course of action I saw fit. And I also shut down RDEX until further notice.
And finally, why did you suspend Kai Conley?
Simply and plainly, Kai broke school rules. I mean, after looking at the bullying and harassment report form and the RDEX messages, and even eventually some text messages from Hannah's phone, I could see the true extent and just the true intent of Kai to harm Hannah. And that was the only course of action, was to suspend Kai.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
May I proceed?
Good evening, Ms. Gray. My name is Logan Schofield, and I'm going to be asking you a few questions. Now, in 2016, you received a bullying and harassment report from a student named Hannah Lannister, isn't that right?
Yes, I did.
If you would please refer to that report, Exhibit 4, it should be entered in front of you. Now, on this report, Hannah stated that she was being teased about playing basketball, isn't that right?
Yes, she was, by Kai.
Yes, and she also stated that this teasing took place nearly every day since school began and she joined the varsity basketball team, correct?
Yes, Kai took every opportunity to bully Hannah.
Yes, and if you would please refer to the topic, who else was involved? Hannah does write that there were several people involved in this teasing, isn't that right?
Yes, she also states Kai most of all.
But that is a yes to my question. She does write specifically that there were several people.
Yes, but she does not name them.
Now, before that, she also writes that if she says their names, they will find out and it will get worse. Isn't that right?
Yes, I see this a lot with high schoolers. The bully tends to take advantage of this and make it worse for them.
Now, Ms. Gray, in response to receiving this report, you created your own investigation form, right?
Yes, per our school policy.
And you would recognize this report if presented to you in court today?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what has been previously marked as Exhibit 5 for purposes of identification. Would Your Honor like a copy? Let the record reflect that I'm handing opposing counsel a copy.
Record shows so reflect.
Ms. Gray, you recognize this document, yes?
Yes, I do.
This is your report form that you created.
Yes.
You created this in the response of creating an investigation to Hannah's report.
Yes, her bullying and harassment report form.
And these would normally be filled out in the event that you must investigate one of those report forms, right?
Yes, it is our school policy that once we receive a bullying and harassment report form, we make an investigation to fully evaluate the matter.
And this form seems to be true and accurate to the original, to the best of your recollection?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, I now move to enter Exhibit 5 into evidence. Its authenticity has been stipulated.
Response to offer Exhibit 5.
Objection, Your Honor, under Rule 401, this is irrelevant.
Your Honor, may I respond? This goes to show in today's case that this goes to rebut the claim that Kai Connolly was intentionally inflicting emotional distress. And on top of that, it also goes to show bias in this witness.
May I respond, Your Honor? Under Stipulation 10 of the stipulations provided today, it is stipulated that Winchester High School complied with all regulations of documenting and recording bullying allegations. Therefore, Ms. Gray's report and investigation form are complete, and she can testify to them furthermore from her own knowledge without this exhibit.
Your Honor, may I respond? Stipulation 10 states that the Winchester High School and the principal may not be found liable in today's case, and I am not attempting to find Ms. Gray liable here. I am attempting to show the bias that she may have against Kai Connolly in today's case.
Any further?
Yes, Your Honor. Again, this goes to opposing counsel is trying to show that Ms. Gray is biased based on her investigation report, but it is stipulated that this report was complete and thorough and sufficient in today's case.
Your Honor, may I respond?
I'm going to overrule the objection. The objection goes more towards the credibility rather than admissibility. I'm going to overrule the objection. Probably do it.
Now, Ms. Gray, you would agree that there is a difference between teasing and bullying, right?
To some degree, but a lot of people use the terms interchangeably.
So is that a yes or a no to my question? Teasing and bullying are two different things.
A lot of people get them confused. So they may say one thing and mean the other, but to other people, they may mean different things.
Ms.
Or
Gray,
mean the
is
same
it
thing.
your belief that teasing and bullying are the same things?
I think they can be. I think they cross the lines a bit sometimes.
Now, Ms. Gray, you were aware that there were several people teasing Hannah Lannister, isn't that right?
Yes, I was, and the most was Kai Connolly.
Now, if you would please refer to the second page of your document under the heading Electronic Communication.
Yes.
You write that there were inappropriate messages taking place on Ardex, right?
Yes, by Kai Connolly.
You write that there was some teasing taking place there?
Yes, among other bullying and such.
And slight name calling as well.
Yes, among other insults and things of that nature towards Hannah.
Now, we also previously agreed that Hannah stated she was being teased about playing basketball. However, you did not interview anyone from the basketball team, did you?
Oh, I did interview other people, Counsel.
You did, Miss Gray.
Yes, I did.
Well, on your report, if you would turn to the first page again, under action taken, you checked that you interviewed the alleged bullier. Isn't that correct?
Yes, Kai Connolly.
You also indicate that you interviewed the alleged victim.
Yes, Hannah.
However, you do not indicate that you interviewed other witnesses. Isn't that right?
That is correct. This investigation is solely pertaining to the situation between Kai and Hannah, and I did interview other people after the fact just to get a little bit more information, and as I also knew other people were bullying Hannah, so I looked into that further.
Okay, Miss Gray, do you remember giving a prior statement in today's case?
Yes, I do.
And you would recognize that statement if I were to present it to you today?
Yes, I would.
And you knew it was important to tell the truth in that statement, right?
Yes, and which I did.
Just as you know that it is important to tell the truth in court today?
Yes, in which I am. I want justice for Hannah. I'm here to tell the truth and nothing but.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with their sworn statement on grounds of impeachment. Ms. Gray, this is your statement, correct?
Yes, it seems to be.
And on the last page, this is your signature?
Yes, it is.
Now, nowhere in this statement did you write that you interviewed anyone from the basketball team, is that right?
This statement is pertaining to Kai Connolly.
Ms. Gray, is that a yes or a no to my question? Nowhere in this statement did you write that you interviewed anyone else?
This is only pertaining to Kai, so no, I was not allowed to talk about other investigations with my other students due to FERPA laws, which I'm sure you know about, Counsel, is their state laws.
Yes, Ms. Gray, but nowhere in this statement did you write that you interviewed anyone else.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Not necessarily, I'm gonna overrule the objection.
So is that a yes to my question, Ms. Gray?
Can you please repeat your question?
Nowhere in this statement did you say that you interviewed anyone else?
Those facts were not pertaining to the case we're trying here today due to Kai Connolly, so no, I did not mention them in my statement.
Now, Ms. Gray, if you would please refer to Exhibit 6, it should be entered in front of you already.
Yes.
These are the ARDEX messages, correct?
Yes, they are.
And if you would please refer to the topic label November 2nd, 2016 Memorial Concert Planning Group.
Yes.
Now, this topic states that it was posted by HL student 624, isn't that right?
Yes, it does state that.
And this topic, as far as you know, was relating to Hannah's idea of a memorial concert for Alex Snow.
As far as I know, yes.
Now, in response to this topic, TM student 579 said, "No thanks." Isn't that right?
That is correct.
And then under that, BC student 627 asks, "Is the Hulk behind this?" Isn't that right?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance under Rule 401.
Your Honor, may I respond? This goes to show that Hannah Lannister, if she was being bullied at all, was being bullied by multiple people, not only Kai Connolly, and therefore goes to rebut the plaintiff's claim today of intentional infliction of emotional distress.
May I respond, Your Honor? Under the claim of wrongful death, we must show that Kai was a concurrent cause of Hannah's death. We understand that Kai was not the only person bullying Hannah, as Ms. Gray stated on her direct examination. However, it is irrelevant to talk about each individual student that bullied Hannah, as we are arguing that Kai was the leader of this bullying.
Your Honor, may I respond? This is relevant as it goes directly to Ms. Gray's testimony that Kai Connolly was bullying Hannah Lannister, and showing that others were bullying as well goes to rebut the plaintiff's claims today.
You know, really objection, it does go to prior testimony, I'll allow that. I continue the line of question.
Now, Ms. Gray, BC student 627 did say, "Is the Hulk behind this?" Isn't that right?
Yes, it is.
And then after that, CS student 652 said, "Ha ha ha, I bet so. Hulk likes Alex, Hulk loves Alex." Isn't that right?
Yes, it is.
Now, as far as you know, they were referring to Hannah as the Hulk. Isn't that right?
Unfortunately, from what I understood it is, Kai started the term.
But you see here that others were following along, isn't that right?
Yes, like a wolf pack, as I stated on direct. Kai
And then
was
after
leading
that,
others.
GG student 115 says, I think it's a nice idea for a loser. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Now, if you would go to the next topic, November 2nd, 2016, Memorial Concert Planning Group, second try. Now, this topic also states that it was posted by Hannah Lannister, correct?
That is correct.
And the first person to respond is TM student 579, correct?
Yes, it is.
And they responded, done and dead still. Nope. Isn't that right?
Yes, you read that correctly.
The next message is by FR student 007, and they said, Bond says, no thanks, Q. Is that
Objection,
right?
Your Honor. I again object to relevance under Rule 401. Opposing counsel is simply reading this exhibit.
Your Honor, may I respond? This portion of my questioning directly goes to rebut Ms. Gray's testimony that Kai Connolly was a leader of a wolf pack, as these students posted before Kai Connolly even saw this message.
May I respond, Your Honor? These students, opposing counsel has already read comments by other students, and continuing to read the entire exhibit is not necessary.
Your Honor, may I respond? I do not intend to read the entire exhibit. I intend to read parts of the exhibit that opposing counsel did not address, and parts of the exhibit that go to rebut the plaintiff's claim today.
Again, it's a mid-exhibit, I'll allow her to read portions of it. You may have any questions. Let's see.
After FR student 007's comment, SP student 018 replied, this is so dead, stop trying. The flyers all ended up in the trash. Think about the trees you are wasting. Be eco-aware. Isn't that right?
Yes, that is.
Now, Ms. Gray, it is your belief in today's case that Kai Connolly placed the noose that was in Hannah's locker. Isn't that right?
From all the evidence that I reviewed and the knowledge I have, I think Kai would be the most likely, for sure.
But you actually have no certain evidence to show that Kai Connolly was even involved in that incident. Isn't that right?
Well, I do have evidence on how Kai treated Hannah, and I think that is good grounds for my beliefs that I have.
But Ms. Gray, you do not know for certain that Kai Connolly was even involved, do you?
Well, I can't say for certain as I'm just a principal at a high
No
school.
further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
None, Your Honor.
Contrary testimony, you may submit. This time, I'd like to call your third witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Penn Everett to the stand.
Do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conforms to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
You may proceed.
Before I proceed, may I inquire as to how much time I have remaining?
May.
You have 7 minutes and 46 seconds.
Will you please introduce yourself to the court?
Hello, my name is Dr. Penn Everett.
And why are you here today, Dr. Everett?
Well, I was retained on the behalf of the plaintiff to give my opinion and analysis into Hannah Lannister's cause of death.
Okay, before we go into your analysis, we'd like to know a little bit more about you. Where are you currently employed?
Well, right now, and for about the past 7 years, I have been employed as the lead researcher at Canyon Ridge University's School of Medicine.
How are you qualified for a position such as this?
Well, I actually received both my bachelor's degree and medical degree from Canyon Ridge in 1990.
What did you do after completing your MD?
Well, I did clinical work for about 7 years after that, and then I was actually a professor of psychology at the Isle of Burke University in Scotland. I was even a distinguished professor at that time.
Well, during your career, have you ever published any articles?
Actually, yes. I've published hundreds of peer-reviewed journals and articles in various national medical publications.
Your Honor, I now move to enter this witness in as an expert on the emotional and physical effects of stress on the body.
Response?
No objections, Your Honor.
The court will declare this witness to be an expert witness in that area and will allow questioning accordingly. You may proceed.
How did you prepare for today's case, Doctor?
Well, I did some more research into the relevant subject areas, and then I reviewed the evidence that was provided to me. Some of this included Hannah's personal diary, the autopsy report, and some text messages between her and Kai Conley.
And was this enough evidence to form a conclusion for today's case?
Absolutely, yes. You know, in my field, it's very important that you get a clear picture of what is happening, and this evidence really allowed me to do that.
And was this enough, or I'm so sorry, what is your conclusion today?
Sure. Well, based on the records that I reviewed, I was able to conclude that Hannah died of a condition known as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. And not only this, she died because she was being bullied, and this caused her an extreme amount of distress and pain.
Okay, let's break your opinion down a little bit for the jury. First of all, what is bullying?
Well, bullying is the repeated action of somebody who has appeared to have a higher social standing than that of their victim. And this type of behavior could include name-calling or personal insults and even physical altercations at some times.
Was Hannah a victim of bullying?
Absolutely, yes. You know, it's undeniable, really. There are numerous documented accounts of bullying, mostly by a student named Kai Conley.
And what evidence showed you that Hannah was a victim of bullying by Kai Conley?
Well, more specifically, the harassment form that she filled out, as well as her own personal diary, and furthermore, the autopsy report, which was conducted by Dr. Sawyer Edgar.
And if I were to provide you with exhibits being the diary and the autopsy report, would you recognize them today?
Yes, I would.
Permission to approach the witness with what has been marked as Exhibit 1 and 2. And I direct court and counsel to their exhibit binders. Do you recognize these exhibits?
Yes, I do. Exhibit 1 is Hannah's diary, and 2 is the autopsy report.
Do they appear to be true and accurate from when you relied on them?
Yes, they do.
Your Honor, I now move to enter Exhibits 1 and 2 as authenticity has been stipulated.
Response to the offer?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to object to Exhibit 1 on the grounds of hearsay. However, there is no objection to the entrance of Exhibit 2.
All right, the court will admit Exhibit 2. You may respond to your objection to Exhibit 1.
Yes, Your Honor, these statements within this diary is Hannah's statement, and they are going to show her then existing mental or physical conditions, that being an exception under Rule 803.3.
May I respond, Your Honor? Opposing counsel is saying this, however, has laid no foundation in leading up to entering this exhibit, and therefore it is still hearsay, as there is no foundation to show it falls under this exception.
May I respond, Your Honor?
May?
I have laid foundation that this is Hannah Lannister's own diary, and therefore this would be Hannah's own thoughts and responses to her daily life, and therefore her then existing mental or physical condition.
May I respond, Your Honor?
May?
Under the exception for hearsay as to the then existing emotional or the mental, emotional, or physical condition is exhibits that would not qualify under this as exhibits that go to show, but not the then existing a statement of memory, and as this as Hannah Lannister would, as it can be inferred, would be writing down in this diary from her memory, this would not fall under the exception and is therefore hearsay.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
The certain testimony, or excuse me, the certain portions of the diary in which Hannah is recalling memory then falls under her, her effect on the listener, and this is Hannah's effect written down in her personal diary, which is still her then existing mental and physical condition.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Do you have anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Yes.
As it has been shown, this exhibit will not fall under the exception as a then existing mental condition, as it is a statement of memory and therefore does not fall under the exception. In addition, opposing counsel has not shown any foundation that is in effect on the listener. And this is simply Hannah Lannister's diary, and there is no listener in this case.
Yes, Your Honor, because these statements would be said to Hannah, she is simply explaining her response. She would be the listener, and she is restating her response through her diary rather than verbally stating her response.
With the stipulations that have previously been entered, the court at this time is going to admit Exhibit 1. I'll show that on the objection.
Yes, sir.
So, Doctor, what specific entries showed you that Hannah was being bullied by Kai Conley?
Well, really, this entire document is some of the most raw evidence that I was able to review. But more specifically, the thing that stood out to me the most was what she said the day before she died. She relays that Kai is killing me every day. And this just goes to show that Hannah had developed depression and anxiety as a result of the conduct that she was bearing at the time.
So, Dr. Everett, are you familiar with the opposing counsel's theory in today's case?
Yes, I am. You know, I always think it's very important to read both sides, I guess you could say. But unfortunately, Dr. Ellis made some scientific errors and therefore making their conclusion wrong.
Could you explain some of these scientific errors that you found in their conclusion?
Absolutely, yes. So, within the autopsy, the heart undergoes numerous chemical and physical exams. More specifically, one of these was the triphenyl tetrazolium chloride test, and these determined by chemical means if something natural caused Hannah's death. And you know, these tests came back negative, meaning that it is scientifically impossible for Hannah to have died of a pre-existing heart condition or malformation. Furthermore, Dr. Edgar noted that there were no scars or anything to indicate a typical cardiac event. I'm not quite sure why Dr. Ellis has this opinion. Perhaps they did not review this section of the autopsy. Not quite sure.
So, Dr. Everett, what did cause Hannah's death?
Well, actually, it was a Takotsubo cardiomyopathy.
And what is Takotsubo cardiomyopathy?
Well, it's a condition that one develops as a response to a particularly distressing or emotional event. And evidence of this was seen in the autopsy report, as Dr. Edgar noted that Hannah's heart appeared to have some stress hormones around it, which is a cardinal sign of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy.
Dr. Everett, was Hannah experiencing mental pain at the time of her death?
Absolutely, yes. You know, as we can see in her diary, she was particularly distressed and anxious as a result of the things that Kai was saying to her. And really, in the end, Hannah succumbed to this bullying in a manner that was certainly foreseeable, but preventable if Kai had acted with the conscious regard of the feelings of others, really.
All right. No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? Good evening, Dr. Everett. My name is Ronan Locker, and today I'll be asking you some questions about your investigation.
Good evening.
Now, you're an expert in today's case, correct?
I am, yes.
And as part of being an expert, you know it's important to have a reasonable degree of scientific certainty.
Absolutely, yes. This is highly important.
Now, ma'am, would you yourself consider conversations that you had with attorneys here today to be scientific?
Well, I mean, if scientific matters were discussed, then yes, of course.
Ma'am, isn't it true that you spoke to the attorneys for the plaintiff before coming to your conclusion?
Well, yes, they did have to call me and ask me to testify, and they gave me the evidence. So, yes, I did speak to them.
And it's true that these attorneys are here on behalf of Jesse Lannister.
Yes, they are.
And Jesse Lannister is here in court today suing Kai Connolly.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Now, further on as being an expert is that you come to a conclusion.
I do, yes.
And this conclusion is that Hannah Lannister died from a stress heart attack.
Absolutely, yes. This is the only one that's supported by the science.
Ma'am, you must not have understood my question. A simple yes or no you say that Hannah Lannister died of a stress heart attack.
Yes, I did say yes, sir.
However, you said due to this stress heart attack, it wasn't until Hannah saw a noose in her locker that stress overwhelmed her body.
Yes, you could kind of consider this the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess.
And as a result of seeing this noose, she died from the stress heart attack.
Yes, she did.
Now, further on within your conclusion is that stress cardiomyopathy, or also known as stress heart attack, is caused by an accumulation of stress.
Yes, more specifically, the accumulation leads to the pinpoint event that ultimately overwhelms the heart.
Exactly, and you say that an accumulation of this was caused by bullying that Hannah endured.
Yes, from Kai Conley, as well as some other students at Winchester.
So you would agree that there were other students bullying Hannah in the time leading up to her death?
Based on what I saw, yes. However, it's very important to note that their conduct did not rise to the level that Kai's did.
Excuse me, ma'am, is that a yes to my question that there were students other than Kai Connolly the bullying Hannah Lannister, correct?
Yes, concurrently with Kai, they were doing this, yes.
Now, ma'am, did you review Exhibit 6?
I did, yes.
And you reviewed this thoroughly, correct?
I did.
Now, could you please refer to this exhibit at this time? Now, again, you are very familiar with this. As an expert, you have to be thorough.
Yes, that's true.
So you would then be aware that within this document, that statements by TM student 579 amount to 6 posts.
Yes, that seems about right.
And also, CS student 652 makes 6 posts within this document.
I'll take your word for it, yes.
And also, you say, under the definition by the Anti-Defamation League, the bullying is defined by repeated actions, correct?
Yes, which Kai Conley most certainly did.
Ma'am, but didn't we also just establish that these other students made multiple statements within this document, correct?
Yes, it appears that they were acting under the influence of Kai at the time, yes.
Ma'am, if you could please refer to the topic post, November 2nd, 2016 Memorial Concert Planning Group. Do you see this?
Yes, I do.
Now, the first post is by that TM student 579, correct?
No, it's by Kai Conley.
Ma'am, this is November 2nd Memorial Concert Planning Group, second try by Hannah Lannister. Do you see this? This is right under that topic post.
I'm sorry, are you referring to Memorial Concert Planning Group?
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness to show them where I'm referring to? This is the third topic post. This is right here, ma'am.
Okay, yes, I see what you're talking
Now,
about.
the first post within this is by TM student 579, correct?
It appears the post was by HL student 624, actually.
She created the post, yes?
Yes, the first
And then the
post.
first within the post after the creation is TM student 579, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And this was before Kai Connolly posted, yes or no?
If you're talking about the second try, then I guess so. But Kai Conley
Ma'am,
initiated the
is
first
that a
try.
yes or no to my answer? Or to my question, excuse me.
Yes, that's a yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Briefly, Your Honor.
May I proceed? So, Dr. Everett, on cross-examination, you were questioned a little bit about your conclusion in today's case. So, were you able to rule out any other causes of death in your conclusion?
Absolutely, yes. You know, as we can see throughout the records, and clearly, Hannah was able to maintain sort of a healthy level of resistance. And only whenever Kai started influencing her did her body kind of fail and not be able to cope with this type of bullying.
And Dr. Everett, if Hannah were to have some sort of heart defect, would that have killed her in itself?
Actually, no, it wouldn't. But furthermore, Hannah had no heart defects, as we saw in the autopsy report.
And finally, Dr. Everett, who bullied Hannah the most?
Kai Conley certainly did. You know, as we can see, Kai makes over a third of the messages within the ArtX posts. And, I mean, the text messages really say it all.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
Yes, Your Honor. Recross. May I proceed, Your Honor? Now, just on redirect, you testified that you believe Hannah did not have heart defects, correct?
Yes, that's certainly correct.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with their sworn statement for purposes of impeachment. Your Honor, or let the record reflect, I'm referring to page 38 of their statement. And ma'am, this is your sworn statement as you are Penn Everett, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And this is your signature at the end?
Yes, it is.
And you're under oath when you made this.
I was, yeah.
Now, this says, within this document, I believe there may have been distortions to her heart before November 11th, 2016. Did I read that correctly?
May have been, but as we saw in the autopsy,
Ma'am, is
I
that a yes
wasn't
to my
sure.
question? Did I read that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. You may sit down. Anything further from the plaintiff prosecution?
Plaintiff rests, Your Honor.
At this time, the defense may call your first witness.
The defense calls Cameron Myers to the stand.
Do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do. May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Good evening. Would you please state your name for the court?
My name is Cameron Myers.
And why are you here today, Miss Myers?
Well, I am the athletic trainer at Winchester High School, so through that I got to know Hannah Lannister pretty well.
What level of education do you have?
I have an undergraduate degree in athletic training from the University of Florida.
And do you have any degrees or certifications or license?
Yes, I am a certified athletic trainer through the Board of Certifications, and I'm also a licensed healthcare professional in the state of Oklahoma.
What is some of the work that you do as an athletic trainer?
I work under the supervision of a physician to conduct injury and illness prevention, emergency care, diagnosis of injuries. I can also conduct physicals, and sometimes I work with rehabilitation of injuries.
And what are some of your responsibilities to Winchester High School?
Well, it is my responsibility to be at every practice and every game if emergency care is needed.
Do you have any other requirements that you hold for your job in athletic training?
Yes, I also must be CPR and AED certified, which I am both.
And what is an AED?
An AED is an automated external defibrillator.
Your Honor, I now move to enter this witness as an expert in the field of athletic training under Rule 702.
Response?
Objection, Your Honor, as to the relevance. As under Rule 702, the testimony of an expert should go to better the understanding of the jury of the facts in the case, and it is unclear what expertise of athletic training will make the claims of wrongful death or intentional infliction of emotional distress more probable today.
May I respond, Your Honor? As a part of the plaintiff's claims in wrongful death, they must prove that there was a wrongful death in the first place. This witness testimony directly goes to refute that, so it is very relevant in determining a fact and issue.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Ms. Myers does not have any expertise in cardiology nor psychology, so therefore her expertise in athletic training is not relevant today as to the wrongful death of Hannah Lannister.
Any further?
Yes, Your Honor. As this witness is entered as an expert in the field of athletic training, this includes the field of treating athletes. Therefore, it is very important for this witness to be entered as an expert in determining fact and issue, as Ms. Myers was in fact the only witness with any sort of medical training to actually speak with and observe Hannah Lannister. Therefore, it is extremely relevant in determining fact and issue.
Any further?
Yes, Your Honor. Again, under Rule 702, an expert must testify to better the understanding of the jury. And again, she cannot testify to the cause of death of Hannah Lannister, nor her emotional distress that she was suffering, which are the claims in today's case.
All right. I'm going to sustain the objection as to the declaration of expertise. However, based on her training and experience, I'll allow her to respond to questions based accordingly on that.
Yes, Your Honor. May I lay more foundation?
Yes.
Ms. Myers, do you know about sudden cardiac arrest?
Yes, I do.
And how do you know about this?
Well, sudden cardiac arrest is the leading cause of death in young exercising athletes, so I must be familiar with it to perform my job to the best of my ability.
And what are some of your responsibilities specifically treating Hannah Lannister, the decedent in today's case?
Well, if a student is found unconscious, it is proper protocol to assume that sudden cardiac arrest has occurred, and I must treat the athlete accordingly.
Your Honor, I now renew my request under Rule 702 to enter this witness as an expert in the field of athletic training.
May I respond, Your Honor? I again object to relevance as to her expertise in athletic training. Furthermore, Ms. Myers cannot even perform a physical examination of an athlete without the presence of a doctor. As there is not a doctor today to assist her in making opinions on Hannah Lannister's death, then I again deny the fact that she is an expert in her field.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
Under Rule 702, you must require skills, knowledge, education, expertise, or training, emphasizing the or. As we have established that Ms. Myers fulfills these requirements with education, expertise, knowledge, and training, emphasizing the and, Ms. Myers is more than qualified under Rule 702 and 401 to be qualified as an expert.
Any further?
Yes, Your Honor. I stand by my objection that Ms. Myers' expertise in athletic training will not go to further the jury's understanding of why these claims of wrongful death and intentional infliction of emotional distress are more or less probable.
Again, I want to sustain the objection as to the declaration of expertise. However, I will allow your line of questioning based on her experience as an athletic trainer, based on her knowledge.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
How did you know Hannah Lannister?
Well, Hannah Lannister was one of my athletes, so I worked with her almost every day for practices and games and even after and before them.
Did you ever overhear any comments that students on the basketball team made about Hannah Lannister?
I never heard anything directly, or of course I would have reported it, but I heard the usual high school gossip in the locker room.
Ms. Myers, were you present on the night of November 11th, 2016?
Yes, I was.
And was the locker room open during the game?
No, it was not. The athletes would keep any of their personal belongings in there, anything from their warm-up gear to their cell phones, anything they wouldn't need during the game, so we kept the locker rooms locked.
Did anything of significance happen before the game began?
Well, before the game, I noticed that Hannah was a little unfocused during the warm-up, and so I watched her closely throughout the game, but I didn't see anything of medical concern.
Did anything happen after the game was completed?
Yes, it did.
And what did happen after the game was completed?
Well, after the game, I was following the team into the locker room, and I heard a scream. So I ran in there, and I saw Hannah lying on the ground, and I checked, and she didn't have a pulse, she was unconscious, and she wasn't breathing. So I called for the emergency action plan to be activated, and I called for the AED to be brought to me while I started manual CPR.
What did you do when the AED was brought to you?
Well, I followed the prompts and placed the patches, one on her shoulder and one on her lower abdomen, and I began CPR until it prompted for 2 shocks to be delivered, and sadly they were unsuccessful, so I continued manual CPR until the paramedics took over Hannah's care.
What happened when the paramedics got there?
They took Hannah to the hospital, and she was later pronounced dead.
What kind of an athlete was Hannah?
Hannah was an amazing athlete, but she did have to work really hard to hone her skills. She went all the way from being a manager to playing at the varsity level and being a starter.
What did you notice about Hannah as the athletic trainer?
I noticed that Hannah was really tired and lagging a little bit in practice.
How much practice do the basketball players, specifically the starters, do in a week?
The starters practiced all the time. They would practice every day, and they would condition 4 times a week.
And what did you notice about Hannah during the weeks before her death?
I noticed that she was struggling, and she seemed so unfocused and fatigued. So I talked to her about it, and she told me she was having a hard time juggling all of her schoolwork and playing at the varsity level.
Did you ever overhear any comments from Kai Conley?
No, I did not.
And why was this?
Because I only heard.
Objection, Your Honor. This question calls for speculation under Rule 602.
May I respond, Your Honor? I've asked this witness to her personal knowledge why she would or would not hear comments from Kai Conley, and she is more than qualified to answer to her own degree of knowledge.
May I respond, Your Honor? Ms. Myers cannot testify to why she didn't hear comments from Kai Conley, as she doesn't know the thoughts and feelings of Kai Conley.
May I respond, Your Honor? This witness is allowed to testify as to why she believes she did not hear comments from Kai Conley under Rule 701, as it is rationally based on the witness's perception. It's not based on any scientific, specialized, or technical knowledge, and it goes to help determining a fact and issue.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
She's still asking for Ms. Myers' belief as to why Kai Conley, someone that she is not familiar with, did not make comments around her.
Yes, Your Honor. As this witness was thoroughly involved with the basketball team, and as Kai Conley is not on this basketball team, she would extremely know why or why not she heard comments from Kai Conley in this witness's testimony.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Now, I'm going to overrule the objection. I'll allow her to respond based on her perceptions and knowledge.
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Would you like me to re-ask my question, Ms. Myers?
Yes, please.
Based on your perception, why didn't you hear any comments from Kai Conley?
Well, I only worked with the athletes, and Kai wasn't on the basketball team.
No further questions, Your Honor. I pass this witness.
Cross-examination.
May I proceed?
You may.
Ms. Myers, you know Hannah personally, right?
Yes, I do.
From her participation on the basketball team in 2016, correct?
Correct.
And she seemed fairly quiet, isn't that right?
Yes, she was a quiet person.
And she kept to herself?
Most of the time.
And being in the locker room with the athletes, you hear a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, the usual high school gossip.
And you overheard some students making comments about Hannah, isn't that correct?
Yes, but no direct comments.
Okay. So the noose in question today, that wasn't the first time something had been found in Hannah's locker, was it?
There had been a few issues or rumors, actually, about something else happening in that sort of manner.
Yeah, there were rumors that some kids had snuck into the locker room, right?
I don't know which time you're talking about.
Well, are you aware that there was a rumor that some kids snuck into the locker room and put trash in Hannah's locker?
Yes, there was a rumor, so I actually talked to Hannah about it, and she told me that it wasn't true and that it was just a rumor, so I didn't need to do anything about it.
Okay, well, if there was a rumor that some kids just snuck into the locker room, would you say that the locker room was easily accessible?
No, I would not. There are people who lock it, and of course the school has good security.
Okay, Ms. Myers. So let's talk about your job. Being an athletic trainer, you conduct office hours at the high school every day, right?
Of course.
And this is for athletes to talk to you about any issues or injuries, correct?
Correct.
But Hannah never scheduled an appointment with you, did she?
No, she never scheduled an appointment, but we did talk frequently.
Okay, but she never talked to you about any issues or injuries, did she?
Not without me talking to her first, no.
Is that a no, that she never talked to you about any issues or injuries?
No, she never came to me about them, but I did go to her.
Okay, are you saying that Hannah had an injury that she talked to you about?
No.
Okay, thank you. In fact, nothing led you to believe that Hannah had any cardiac condition whatsoever.
No, nothing did.
There was nothing in her family history?
No.
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of expertise.
May I respond, Your Honor? I'm asking Ms. Myers to testify to her personal knowledge of her familiarity with Hannah. As a part of her job being the athletic trainer, she did review family history of her athletes and conduct physical examinations of them.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
Opposing counsel has failed to lay the sufficient foundation to show that this would be the case, and as it has previously been established, Ms. Myers is not an expert in the field of athletic training, therefore she cannot testify to the specifics of it.
May I respond, Your Honor? On Ms. Myers' direct examination, opposing counsel laid foundation that she was a competent athletic trainer at the high school of Winchester. We just objected that she didn't have the expertise to testify to the cause of Hannah's death. However, she obviously would have knowledge of Hannah's health and general records that were kept as a part of the school's policy in athletic training.
May I respond, Your Honor? As opposing counsel has said, there's been sufficient foundation to lay that she is a competent athletic trainer. However, no foundation has been laid to show that she does physicals by herself, did the physical of Hannah Lannister, and anything such. Therefore, it is not admissible.
May I respond, Your Honor? In Ms. Myers' prior statement that she made today, she testified that she conducted a physical examination of Hannah. She does have knowledge of the basic responsibilities as she is the athletic trainer. We only objected because she cannot testify to the cause of Hannah Lannister's death.
Based on, I'll let her respond to the question based on her observations and her training as a trainer. Judge Reardon.
So in her physical examination, there was nothing of medical significance, was there?
Correct.
And furthermore, in observation of Hannah at practice and at games, you didn't notice anything of medical significance?
None of medical significance. I just noticed that she was tired and lagging a little bit.
Okay, but we can agree that fatigue is associated with a lot of issues, right?
Yes, it can be.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the symptoms of a cardiac condition. As you would know as an athletic trainer, Hannah never showed any signs of chest pains, did she?
No, not directly to me.
And she never showed any signs of lightheadedness?
No.
And she never showed any signs of shortness of breath, did she?
No, she did not have any cardiac signs.
Okay, and we can agree that these are all symptoms of a cardiac condition, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So let's talk about the night of Hannah's death. The team had a big game that night, right?
Yes, it was a rival game.
But in the warm-up, you described Hannah as unfocused, isn't that correct?
Yes, I did. So I watched her closely throughout the game, and she played great. I didn't see anything wrong.
Yes, you kept a close eye on her. And despite keeping a close eye on her during the game, you noticed nothing of medical significance on the night of her death, did you?
Correct.
Okay. So let's talk about what happened after the game. The team was walking into the locker room when you heard a scream, right?
Yes.
So you rushed into the locker room and you found Hannah's body lying on the ground, isn't that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And above her, in her locker, was a noose, right?
I believe that's what I saw, but I was focused on the health of my athlete, not her surroundings.
Okay, but Ms. Myers, let's talk about what you did see. There was a noose in her locker, correct?
Yes, but then I directed my attention, so I don't know the specifics really of what was in her locker.
Okay, but in the neck of the noose, you found a stuffed animal, isn't that correct?
I believe that's what I saw. It was in the heat of the moment.
Okay, so you saw a noose on the neck of a stuffed animal, and on that stuffed animal was Hannah's jersey number, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Direct.
Yes, Your Honor, briefly. Ms. Myers, you were asked about some rumors on cross-examination. Do you know if this is true?
No, I do not. As I did talk directly to Hannah, she told me that they were just rumors and to do nothing about it, so that's what I did.
No further questions, Your Honor. I pass this witness.
Any cross-examination?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, testimony, Mr. Kennedy. Defense going to call your second witness.
The defense calls Kai Conley to the stand.
Do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
May I proceed, Your Honor? Good evening. Would you please state your name for the court?
My name is Kai Conley.
And how long have you known Hannah Lannister?
Well, I've known Hannah since grade school, and honestly, if I ever saw anything like this coming, I truly believe I would have done something to stop it.
And how did you know Hannah?
Well, I would consider Hannah and I friends. Not a close or a good friend, but a friend still.
Why weren't you and Hannah close friends?
Well, Hannah was just interested in traditional geeky things that my friends and I just weren't into. And she took my friend's spot on the basketball team.
When Hannah took your friend's spot on the basketball team, how did you react?
I mean, I was upset. My friend had been playing basketball her whole life and deserved a spot on the team. I wasn't Hannah's biggest fan because of that, but I never wanted her dead.
Did you ever try to be supportive of Hannah being on the team?
Yes, I did try to be supportive, eventually.
And how did you do this?
Well, I gave Hannah some paracord and other various workout equipment because she had just started training that summer and I didn't think she had anything like that.
Was it unusual for you to give Hannah some paracord?
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of personal knowledge under Rule 602.
May I respond, Your Honor? This witness can testify to her personal knowledge whether or not she believes it would be unusual for her to give Hannah some paracord under Rule 701.
May I respond, Your Honor? There's been no foundation laid to show that this witness would have any knowledge of the type of equipment that basketball players would use. Therefore, she has no knowledge as to what would be useful or not to a basketball player. Ms. Conley was not on the basketball team and she did not play. Therefore, she has no personal knowledge as to whether or not this would be a useful tool for Hannah Lannister.
May I respond, Your Honor? I'm not asking this witness whether or not it was a useful tool, as opposing counsel has said. I'm simply asking this witness whether or not she believes it would be unusual for her to give Hannah some paracord.
May I respond, Your Honor? The usability of paracord as a mode of equipment for a basketball player is in fact something that she would have no knowledge of. Your Honor, this witness has not, or excuse me, opposing counsel has laid no foundation to show that this witness would have any knowledge as to whether or not this would be an unusual trait in giving this to Hannah Lannister.
May I respond, Your Honor? I'm not asking this witness to testify to the severity or the disparity of people on the team who use paracord equipment. I'm simply asking her to her personal knowledge if it's unusual for Ms. Kai Conley to give Hannah Lannister some paracord.
I'm not ruling the objection, I'll allow the witness to respond to the question.
Would you like me to re-ask my question?
Yes, please.
Was it unusual for you to give Hannah some paracord?
No, not at all. Everyone on the team used some kind of workout equipment like that, and I firmly believed it was something she would need. I'd be happy if someone gave me some solid strength rope like that.
Was it ever apparent to you that a lot of people in the basketball use this equipment?
Well, a lot of my friends were on the basketball team, so I knew kind of what their training schedule was.
Were you ever mean to Hannah because she was on the basketball team?
No, I wasn't.
And were you even on the basketball team yourself?
No, I was an avid fan, and like I said, I had many friends on the team, but I was not.
What do you know about the memorial concert idea that Hannah had?
Well, I know she tried to create a memorial concert for Alex Snow, one of the members of the band Heisenberg, that she was a big fan of, but she kind of embarrassed herself with the whole thing, honestly. I mean, people outside of Winchester knew about it. A lot of people were saying she was playing the victim and hogging the attention from Alex.
Did this memorial concert idea gain a lot of attention at Winchester High School, to your knowledge?
It did, just not positive attention. I mean, Hannah made all these flyers and almost all of them ended up in the trash, and she created this web page, but it didn't really go anywhere.
Did anything change after this memorial concert idea?
Yeah, a lot of people started being mean to Hannah on Ardex.
Did you ever see anybody being mean to Hannah?
Some of my friends were mean to Hannah, and now with the situation, I just feel pretty bad about it.
Were you ever mean to Hannah?
Well, I joked around with Hannah like I joked around with all of my friends. We were trying to include her. It seems now that maybe she wasn't taking it the way that we thought, but with that being said, everyone experiences some kind of teasing going through high school. It's just a part of it.
Ms. Conley, were you present during the plaintiff's witness's testimony?
Yes, I was.
Did you hear Jesse Lannister testify?
Yes.
Did you hear Val Gray testify?
Objection, Your Honor. Opposing counsel is leading the witness for a consecutive number of questions now.
May I respond, Your Honor? Under the rules of evidence, a leading question is allowed if it helps further the direct examination. As it does in this case, it is allowed.
May I respond, Your Honor? It's been for several consecutive questions now that opposing counsel has been leading the witness. I do concede that while it is not objectionable to lead for maybe one or two questions in order to lay a foundation, opposing counsel has been leading this witness consecutively for a significant number of questions now, Your Honor.
May I respond, Your Honor? Under the rules of evidence, consecutivity is not addressed. It's only whether or not it furthers the witness's testimony. As it does in this case, it is admissible.
The number of questions are going into the area and how long to allow is really a question for the judge. I'm going to overrule the objection and allow it to proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Would you like me to re-ask my question?
Yes, please.
Did you hear the testimony of Val Gray?
Yes, I did.
And did you hear Dr. Penn Everett testify?
I did.
Ms. Conley, after hearing that, did you place the noose in Hannah Lannister's locker?
No, I didn't. Like I said earlier, I'm not on the basketball team and I have no access to the locker room.
And also after hearing that, would you like to explain why you said what you said to Hannah Lannister?
Yes. Well, it's hard for adults to understand, but that's genuinely how we all talk to each other. All of the students at Winchester. It was always just this big joke to us. Now, when you see it in print like this, yes, it does look harsh, but that's all it was. We were either joking or just trying to motivate each other in our own way. It was always a joke.
Did you ever refer to Hannah Lannister as the Hulk?
Yes, I did, but again, only because I thought it was a nickname she liked. I mean, who wouldn't want to be called a superhero?
Lastly, Ms. Conley, did you bully Hannah Lannister?
No, I never did anything worse than what others did, and it's totally unfair that I'm being blamed for everything that happened to Hannah.
No further questions, Your Honor. I pass this witness.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? You weren't close friends with Hannah Lannister, were you?
Not close, but a friend I would consider, yeah.
In fact, you weren't even good friends, were you?
Not good, but again, a friend.
Now, she made the basketball team her junior year, correct?
Correct?
And that upset you, didn't it?
At first, yes, it did.
You didn't like it, did you?
At first, no, I did not.
You didn't like Hannah because of it.
Again, at first, no, I wasn't her biggest fan.
Now, you texted Hannah directly, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you also talked to her through the Ardex platform, right?
A few times, yes.
And you'd recognize those text messages if you saw them in court today, wouldn't you?
Most likely.
Permission to approach the exhibit number 3 for purposes of identification. I would now direct Your Honor, as well as opposing counsel, to exhibit number 3, their binders. Now, in these text messages, you repeatedly called Hannah the Hulk, didn't you?
Yes, like...
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry, Your Honor. Let me backtrack a little bit. Now, you recognize these text messages, correct?
Yes, I do.
And they are not changed or altered in any way, are they?
Not from what I can see.
Your Honor, at this time, I ask that exhibit number 3 be entered into evidence.
Yes, Your Honor. I object under hearsay.
May I respond, Your Honor?
I'm sorry. Have you finished your objection?
Yes, Your Honor. I object to hearsay.
All right. Ms. Fund?
Under Rule 801D2, as for the statements of Kai Conley, they are the party opponent, therefore they are not hearsay, Your Honor. And as for the statements of Hannah Lannister under Rule 8033, they go to her then existing mental or emotional condition. And that is also an exception for hearsay, Your Honor.
May I respond, Your Honor? Opposing counsel has not laid sufficient foundation to use the hearsay exception, then existing mental, emotional, and physical condition. Therefore, Hannah Lannister's statements do not fulfill this requirement, and this is still inadmissible under hearsay.
May I respond, Your Honor? It has already been stipulated that these documents are accurate in their composition. Hannah, in these text messages, is responding back to Kai, and Kai, in turn, responding to Hannah. Therefore, they are a statement of her then existing mental or emotional condition.
May I respond, Your Honor? Simply responding to a text message does not convey the psychological, mental, or emotional feelings that you were portraying, and opposing counsel has not laid sufficient foundation to show that this is the case.
I'm going to overrule the objection. Exhibit. I have a line of question.
So, Ms. Conley, on October 31st, when Hannah questioned what you meant by Hulk, your response was, The uber aggressive athlete that comes out of nowhere and no one likes, just destroys everything, even their own team at times. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I did say that as a joke.
And you also said that if you needed a big, hulked up green monster, superhero, quote unquote, I believe is what you said you'd give Hannah a call, didn't you?
Yeah, that's what the Hulk is, and that's what we called her.
Now you say that eventually, Ms. Conley, you were supportive of Hannah making the team.
Yes, I believe so.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Now you told her she was a walking joke, didn't you?
Yes, as a joke, I didn't actually mean that.
So Ms. Conley, were you joking when you said she was wrecking the team?
Yeah,
So you were joking when you said that she was destroying the team.
yeah, she obviously wasn't actually destroying the team.
Now, Ms. Conley, you also told Hannah Lannister to get off the court, didn't you?
Yeah, if she wasn't going to help the team out.
You also told her to get off the team, didn't you?
Again, if she wasn't going to help the team out, yeah.
Now, you also told her to go back to the bench, right?
Yes, I did.
You told her no one wanted her on the court, didn't you?
Again, if she wasn't going to step up and really help the team out, we didn't want her there.
Okay. Now, Ms. Conley, Hannah told you enough is enough, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
She even expressed a sentiment that she should block you, didn't she?
She did, but she didn't.
Okay. And Ms. Conley, you still maintain that you and Hannah were friends, right?
Yes, I do.
So tell me, Ms. Conley, do friends file bullying reports against one another?
I don't really know what you consider friendship, but at the time when I told Hannah that, I thought, again, we were just kind of in a misunderstanding and miscommunication.
Thank you, Ms. Conley. But Hannah did file a bullying report against you, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
And your response to this was, don't ever file some stupid report saying someone bullied you ever again. Isn't that correct, Ms. Conley?
I did say that because we were all confused, all of our friends, why she did that. Because, again, we genuinely didn't think we were bullying her.
So that's a yes to my question. Those were your words in response to finding out. Those were the words that you told Hannah Lannister, right?
Yes, because we were confused.
And Ms. Conley, you threatened her, didn't you?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean.
She passed your friend on the depth chart, didn't she?
Yes, she did, technically.
And in your words, that couldn't go unpunished, could it, Ms. Conley?
Yes, but I didn't mean that. That was a joke.
You gave Hannah Lannister some paracord, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you said that that paracord you gave her was the exact same material fashioned into a noose found in Hannah's locker the night she died, wasn't it?
That's what I was later told.
And you said that that noose did the most damage, didn't you?
Apparently, but I don't really know.
But you said that, didn't you?
Apparently, yeah, I did.
Now, Miss Conley, you also said that this equipment you provided her would give some support for her upcoming change, didn't you?
Yeah, if she used it and really trained.
You told her you could rework this paracord to help more one day, didn't you?
Yeah, if she wanted the help, I used paracord myself.
You said this paracord would give her a new view of the games, didn't you?
Yeah, if she really trained and put herself to it and really just helped out the team.
You also said that this new view would be somewhere out of the way, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Now, Miss Conley, the night before Hannah Lannister died, you told her you were going to deliver some more equipment for the basketball game, didn't you?
Yes, to help her train.
Okay. Now, the night that Hannah Lannister died, you sent her a text message, didn't you?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay. And in this text message, if you'll look at it with me, the night before Hannah Lannister, or excuse me, the night that Hannah Lannister did die, you said, good luck in the second half tonight, right?
Yes, I did say that.
You also said in this text message, the night that Hannah Lannister died, hope the equipment helps, didn't you?
Yes, I did say that. I
And
hope
this is-
she used it like she was supposed to and really trained.
In this exact same text message, the night that Hannah Lannister lost her life, you said, I'm certain it will make the team better, didn't you?
Yes, if she really trained with the equipment.
And finally, Miss Conley, your words of choice were remember H to just hang in there, weren't they?
Yes, that was supposed to be
Nothing further,
encouraging.
Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? Opposing counsel drew your attention to some RDAX messages. Do you have those in front of you?
Yes, I do.
She mentioned some comments on November 2nd, 2016 Memorial Concert Planning Group's second try. Are you able to locate this?
Yes, I am.
Would you please read the comments above yours by SP student 0818?
Yes. This is so dead. Stop trying. The flyer's all up in the trash. Think about the trees you're wasting. Be eco-aware.
And to your knowledge, what was this referencing?
The memorial concert for Alex Snow.
You were also asked to reference some comments on the topic post, the Hulk. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I think so.
And do you see the last comment that opposing counsel drew your attention to on the next page?
I think so.
Would you please read the comment above that by TN student 579?
Yes. If we can get H to just smash the other team, then I think it's brilliant to have her on the team. Bonus is we have a new mascot without needing to get a new costume.
And Ms. Conley, did you make these statements?
No, I did not.
Also on cross-examination, you were asked about how it was the same type, how the noose was the same type of paracord you gave her. Do you know if it was the same paracord you gave her?
I have no idea of that. That's what I was later told, but like I said, I have nothing to do with that. I have no access to the locker room. I couldn't have done anything with it.
You also mentioned that you told Hannah that you were going to bring her some workout equipment. Did this include paracord?
No, it didn't, because I had already given her some. I was going to give her some various other equipments.
Lastly, Ms. Conley, did you place the noose in Hannah Lannister's locker?
Like I said earlier, and again, no, I didn't. I'm not on the basketball team. I don't have access to the locker room. I could not have done it, and I would not have done it. That crosses the line.
No further questions, Your Honor. I pass this witness.
Briefly, Your Honor, you mentioned on direct examination that you didn't know if that was the same material that was found in Hannah's locker. Isn't that correct?
No, I did not say that.
What did you say then?
I said that's what I was later told, that it was the same type of material.
Okay. Do you recall giving your prior testimony?
Yes.
And you were sworn to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in that testimony, weren't you?
Yes.
Okay. And you'd recognize it if you saw it in court today, wouldn't you?
Most likely.
Permission to approach the witness's affidavit for purposes of impeachment?
Objection, Your Honor. Improper impeachment. Opposing counsel has failed to designate a previously inconsistent statement.
May I respond, Your Honor? I just gave her an opportunity to confirm or deny her prior inconsistent statement, and now I am allowed to impeach on it, Your Honor.
May I respond? Opposing counsel has not designated a prior inconsistent statement. Therefore, she did not give this witness an opportunity to confirm or deny, as she did not earmark the fact that there was a inconsistent statement.
Yes, Your Honor. I did ask specifically if this was her statement and if she remembered giving a prior inconsistent one, Your Honor. I already allowed her the chance to confirm or deny her statement, and as she did, I am now allowed to impeach on it. May I approach? I now direct opposing counsel to page 22, line number 9 and 10. Please read along silently as I read aloud. I know that a noose was found in her locker and that it was the same type of material I gave her, but I do not know anything about the locker stuff. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did, and that's what I said. I was later told that it was the same type.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you for your testimony. You may sit down. That's my call your third witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense calls Dr. Drew Ellis to the stand.
Do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
May I proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Dr. Ellis. Can you please introduce yourself for the court?
Good evening. My name is Dr. Drew Ellis.
And why are you here today?
Well, I have been retained by the defense to provide my expert opinion regarding the death of Miss Hannah Lannister. This is based on my professional knowledge and expertise, as well as my independent review of relevant case materials and my investigation.
Now, Doctor, before we go into discussing your investigation, let's begin with the first thing you said, which is your professional background and your expertise. Now, what is your profession?
Well, I have my degree in psychology, and I now teach as a professor in the Department of Psychological Medicine at the University of Southern Pangaea.
I also contribute to research and consulting with the university.
What education do you have that has brought you to this point?
I completed my initial course of higher education from the University of Cornwall in the year 1976. With this, I obtained a Bachelor in Science, more specifically psychology, and a minor in English literature. 2 years later, I went on to pursue medical school and was accepted into a multi-year clinical internship. In 1983, I then completed my coursework with medical school.
What happened after you completed this coursework?
For about 12 years, I ran my own clinic, Ellis Clinic, and I worked as a clinical physician. We had offices in Canada as well as Dallas, Texas.
After this, how did you get started with the University of Southern Pangea?
Well, in the year 1995, I believe, they offered me a teaching position with their Department of Physiology. I accepted because I have always loved teaching, and being in the educational field has really allowed me to continue research and writing and staying on top of the leading edge of medical advancements. In fact, in the year 2000, I started one of the first departments of psychological medicine in the country. This course is where the fields of medicine, psychology, and physiology all intersect into one course of study.
Have you ever published throughout your career?
Yes, I have about 45 publications in various mental health journals.
And what organizations are you professionally affiliated with?
I am affiliated with the American Association for Anti-Bullying, the International Society for the Study of Stress Effects Related to the Human Body, the Canadian Society for Clinical Psychological Medicine Related to Stress, and then the Association of Behavioral and Cognitive Therapy.
Your Honor, I now move that this witness be entered as an expert in the areas of the physiological as well as the psychological effects of bullying.
Response to the expertise request.
No objections, Your Honor.
The court at this time will declare this witness to be an expert in those areas and may conduct the questioning accordingly.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Dr. Ellis, let's go on to move on to discussing your investigation in this case. How did you begin with your investigation?
I began as I always do. I reviewed all of the available evidence. That included Hannah Lannister's diary entries, the autopsy and medical report conducted by Sawyer Edgar, ARDEX pages and posts related to Hannah. I looked over text messages between Hannah Lannister and Kai Conley, as well as the student report, the student investigation report, and then Penn Everett's expert report.
And after reviewing all of this evidence, what did you conclude?
Well, as an initial matter, I must concede that Hannah was subject to bullying, but this is not the cause of her death.
How do you say this is not the cause of her death?
Well, Hannah was young, in shape, and engaged in high-intensity activity for months leading up to her death. The mere presence of a noose would not in itself create the kind of shock or overwhelming psychological effect that the body would dump stress hormones at such a level that would overwhelm the heart, especially not for someone in Hannah's demographic.
What do you mean by someone in Hannah's demographic?
A young, in-shape athlete in the age range of 14 to 21.
So, Dr. Ellis, if it was not the bullying that caused Hannah Lannister's death, what did you conclude on the nature of her cause of death?
After I had reviewed all of the evidence, I concluded that Hannah had an undiagnosed and therefore untreated heart condition, and it manifested the night of November 11th.
Can you please explain how this is possible?
This is possible because of a condition known as sudden unexpected death, or SUD. Although these cases are rare, you could say, in this instance, it is fully backed by the evidence.
Can you please elaborate for the jury more about the nature and causes of sudden unexpected death?
Yes. The World Health Organization defines and identifies sudden unexpected death, or SUD, as a sudden collapse within 1 hour of a person being witnessed with an onset of symptoms, or a person being witnessed alive and symptom-free within 24 hours of an unwitnessed terminal event.
Are there any studies regarding this condition?
Yes. Actually, a recent 20-year study with 4,926 autopsies performed on SUD cases where children were 0 to 17 and death occurred between 24 hours of clinical presentation of previously undetected heart disease showed and supported the relative high frequency of sudden unexpected deaths. In this study, there were 103 SUD diagnoses, where the most common diagnoses were myocarditis, hypoplastic left heart syndrome, coronary artery anomalies, aortic stenosis, and dilated cardiomyopathy.
Did you review the autopsy report completed by Sawyer Edgar in this case?
Yes, I did.
If you could please refer to this exhibit at this time.
Yes, I have it here in front of me.
Yes, can you please now explain for the jury what Dr. Sawyer Edgar identified in the heart analysis section of this document?
Yes, while reviewing this exhibit, I did note that that Dr. Edgar noted possible signs of cardiomyopathy. He subjected Hannah's heart to 2 tests to look for possible signs of a natural cause of death, such as myocardial infarction.
And why is this important?
Well, myocardial infarction is pretty synonymous with a standard heart attack, and the fact that these came back negative only supported my conclusion that Hannah suffered from a sudden cardiac arrest.
Now, can you please explain for the jury what the difference is between a standard cardiac arrest and a heart attack?
Of course. A standard heart attack involves the blood vessels surrounding the heart, where these vessels become blocked or clotted with coagulated blood, and therefore the blood flow is not regular and the heart cannot pump properly. In this case, Sawyer Edgar notes that there is no signs of this because the blood vessels surrounding the heart are not blocked. There is no evidence of ruptured plaque or any scars on the vessels leading to the heart. This supports my conclusion that Hannah suffered rather from a sudden cardiac arrest, which is where the heart simply malfunctions and it ceases to work.
Now, is there anything else within the autopsy report that supports your conclusion rather than supporting the conclusion of Dr. Penn Everett?
Yes, Dr. Penn Everett's expert conclusion is that Hannah suffered from a stress heart attack. I suppose maybe she did not understand the autopsy report, but the evidence is clear that Hannah didn't suffer from a heart attack at all. She suffered from a sudden cardiac arrest.
Now, Dr. Ellis, what did you find notable in the clothing and personal effects section of this document?
I noted that Hannah was wearing her basketball warm-up pants over her uniform when her body was located.
Why is this important?
Well, the plaintiff's theory in this case is that Hannah opened her locker, saw a noose, and dropped dead. But a few moments earlier, Cameron Myers testified that these athletes kept their personal belongings in their locker. So that would lead me to believe that Hannah would have had to open her locker, see the noose inside, grab her bag, and then begin to get dressed.
So, therefore, how is sudden unexpected death possible in Hannah's case?
Sudden unexpected death is the only cause of death that is fully backed by the evidence. I do not dispute the fact that Hannah suffered from other forms of stress, such as the inability to cope with the loss of a loved band member. She was in hard courses, social organizations, and in a physically stressful sport. But these did not cause her death. These are merely external factors that put her at a higher risk to suffer a sudden, unexpected death due to her underlying and undiagnosed heart condition.
So, Dr. Ellis, in conclusion, what caused Hannah's death?
Well, I submit my conclusion based on a reasonable degree of scientific, medical, and investigational certainty that Hannah suffered from an undiagnosed heart condition. This manifested the night of November 11th and caused her death. Therefore, the actions of another individual did not cause her death.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? Now, Dr. Ellis, first I would like to talk a little bit about the evidence that you reviewed. You didn't see Hannah's body when she died, did you?
No, I did not.
So you had to rely on the autopsy report, isn't that correct?
As did Penn Everett, yes.
Exactly. So in this autopsy report, the chief medical examiner made this, correct?
Correct.
And in this autopsy report, this medical examiner found that Hannah's blood around her heart was sludgy. Isn't that correct?
Correct. That is consistent with the consistent release of stress hormones, as Hannah was subject to a physically rigorous sport. Her body would be under constant stress.
Yes, exactly. Consistent with the constant release of stress hormones. Isn't that correct?
Yes, Hannah had been a part of a rigorous sport for months.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, Your theory is that Hannah died of an underlying heart condition. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
And therefore, Hannah's death would have to have been natural. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Now, in the same autopsy report, the medical examiner had to perform chemical tests on Hannah's heart, right?
Yes, Sawyer Edgar did subject Hannah's heart to two tests to look for natural causes of death, such as myocardial infarction.
Now, these tests, one of them was the acridine orange fluorescence test. Isn't that right, ma'am?
I believe so.
And this test chemically determines if Hannah died of a natural cause of death. Isn't that right?
Not necessarily.
Ma'am, yes or no?
No.
Okay, very well. Now, I believe you have Exhibit 2 in front of you already.
Yes, counselor.
So, if you could go to the last page under heart, in the middle of the paragraph, it says, this subject heart was submitted to analysis through the triphenyltetrazolium chloride and acridine orange fluorescence studies, which look for evidence of a natural cause of death, like myocardial infarction. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, like myocardial infarction.
Now, Hannah's heart did not have any blocked blood vessels, did it?
That is correct.
It had no ruptured plaque.
Correct.
It had no scar tissue on Hannah's heart. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Furthermore, these are signs of natural cause of death. Isn't that correct?
They are signs of a standard heart attack, but my
Ma'am,
conclusion...
is that a yes to my question? That are
Objection, Your Honor.
signs.
Opposing counsel is cutting off my witness.
May I respond, Your Honor? These questions are specifically designed to be responded with a yes or a no, and this witness is not responding as such. However, she is answering the question.
May I respond, Your Honor? As opposing counsel is asking extremely technical questions about this medical terminology in this case, this witness, as an expert, is simply trying to explain the nature so as to not confuse the jury about the nature of these medical terms.
May I respond, Your Honor? I'm not asking questions about medical terms and diagnosis. However, I am asking yes or no questions about what is found in the autopsy report and therefore can be answered with yes or no answers.
May I respond, Your Honor? This witness is an expert and is simply trying to answer to the best of her ability. These questions are extremely technical and require some explanation so that the jury is not confused as to the nature of this document.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Let's do this. If you're going to ask for a yes or no response, you might couch your question accordingly. Let's proceed.
So yes or no, Dr. Ellis, these are evidence of a natural cause of death.
Counselor, I apologize. I cannot answer that with a yes or no.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you would agree with in today's case. You agree that Kai bullied Hannah, isn't that right?
That is correct.
You would agree that Kai bullied Hannah intentionally.
I would not necessarily say that, no.
Well, you would agree that Kai's behavior was crass, right?
I would not necessarily say that either. I do believe that Hannah was subject to bullying, but to go as far as that, I cannot say so.
Is it your testimony here today that Kai's actions were not crass behavior?
I believe that they were socially harmful and mean, yes, counselor.
Do you agree that Kai's actions were of crass behavior?
You could say that.
Okay. Now, you would also agree that this was of mean intention, isn't that right?
I would not necessarily say that either, counselor.
Well, let's talk about more of the evidence you reviewed. You reviewed Exhibit 1, Hannah's diary, isn't that correct?
Correct.
And I believe that is there in front of you, right?
Yes.
So you saw Hannah's last entry on the day before she died, isn't that correct?
Yes, I did review this.
And yes or no, Hannah wrote, Kai is killing me every day.
That is what she wrote, yes.
Now, the very next day, Hannah had a basketball game, isn't that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And Hannah was a starter, isn't that right?
That is what I believe, yes.
So she would play in the first half of the game?
I think that's how it works.
Now, at the end of the game, Hannah wasn't playing, right?
I do not have that knowledge.
Okay. Well, Hannah went into the locker room, isn't that correct?
I believe she went into the locker room at the end of the game, as did the rest of the students.
Yes, because that's where Hannah was found lying on the floor, isn't that correct?
That is where her body was located, yes.
And above her body, her locker was open, isn't that correct?
That is what I've heard, but I do not have any forensic evidence of that, no.
And in that locker was a noose, right?
I have heard that, yes.
And in that noose was a stuffed animal, right?
I believe so, I'm not quite sure.
And yes or no, you heard that on that stuffed animal was Hannah's jersey number.
That is what others have testified to?
Thank you, ma'am. No further questions.
Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
May I proceed? Now, Doctor, I believe opposing counsel cut you off while you were trying to finish your answer on cross-examination. Would you like to continue explaining what you were saying?
Yes, I have heard through other witnesses' testimony that there was a noose found with a stuffed animal and a jersey number, but there is no evidence that I reviewed in this case that had any connection with that.
Now, does this noose have any bearing or weight on the death of Hannah Lannister?
Absolutely not. There is no shred of evidence as to where the noose came from, who placed it, or why it was placed.
Now, additionally, on cross-examination, you were asked about the tests that were completed by Dr. Sawyer Edgar. Now, what do these tests specifically look for?
They looked for a natural cause of death, but the key part of this is that they were only looking for a natural cause of death like myocardial infarction, and that is a standard heart attack.
Now, how is this different from a sudden unexpected death?
As I said, the blood vessels surrounding the heart would become clogged or blocked with coagulated blood if Hannah were to experience a stress heart attack, as Penn Everett would like to say, but in this case, there is no evidence of that.
In fact, is there any evidence of a stress-induced heart attack in the autopsy report?
Absolutely none.
So, Dr. Ellis, why is sudden unexpected death the only conclusion that can be reached in this case?
After I reviewed all of the evidence, this is the only conclusion fully backed by the evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Recross?
Briefly, Your Honor. Yet again, Dr. Ellis, I would like to talk about the autopsy report a little bit more. Sludgy blood around Hannah's heart was found, isn't that correct?
Yes, I testified to that earlier.
And this is the autopsy report of the Chief Medical Examiner of Oklahoma, isn't that correct?
Yes, Dr. Sawyer Edgar.
And Dr. Edgar found that the most likely cause of death was stress-induced cardiomyopathy, isn't that correct?
That is not correct, Counselor. He found possible potential signs of that, but he even notes in his autopsy that he does not have enough evidence or knowledge on this subject matter to make a definite conclusion.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, Dr. Edgar didn't note any other possible cause of death, isn't that correct?
No, Counselor, he did not.
Only stress-induced cardiomyopathy, yes or no?
I cannot answer that with a yes or no.
All right, well, then no further questions.
Thank you for your testimony. You may still carry. All right, at this time, the court will entertain the closing argument of counsel.
Your Honor, at this time, I ask that any remaining time I have after my initial closing be reserved for rebuttal.
That would be great.
May I proceed? No one likes you. Get off the court and get off the team. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the words of Kai Conley. The defense has tried to plaster over the intentionally mean and degrading words of the defendant with an image of friendship. One that paints the bullying as if it was just the dynamic between Hannah and Kai. Just joking, just teasing. Ladies and gentlemen, Hannah Lannister wasn't laughing. These words were intended to only intentionally, emotionally distress Hannah Lannister, and as you saw today, they did the job. You're wrecking the team. The team was better off without you. Just go back to the shadows. Again, ladies and gentlemen, these are the words of Kai Conley. And Dr. Penn Everett told you today that because of these words, and because of this bullying, Hannah Lannister lost her life. The only independent expert in today's case, Dr. Edgar, the expert who conducted the autopsy report, stated that there was a stress-related condition, and evidence of this was found in the blood samples around Hannah's heart, which was thick with stress hormones, ladies and gentlemen. There's one thing that unites both of the experts who were present in today's case. It's the fact that Kai bullied Hannah. It's the fact that Kai's actions are absolutely unacceptable in a civilized society. The defense expert even told you today that Kai's actions were of mean intention and that they were crass. Glad the paracord is working. Maybe I can rework it to help more one day. It'll give you a new view of the games, somewhere out of the way. Remember, H, to just hang in there. Again, ladies and gentlemen, these are the words of Kai Conley. The plaintiff bears the burden of proof in today's case, and we must prove by preponderance of the evidence that Kai Conley intentionally inflicted emotional distress on Hannah Lannister. Now today, members of the jury, one of the most important jury instructions that the judge read you today was about concurrent causes. And it states that when an injury is due to the negligence of two or more persons, each person's conduct is a direct cause, no matter how much anyone else contributed. So what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that because Kai Conley contributed to the bullying that Hannah Lannister suffered, because Kai Conley was the leader of the pack, he's a direct cause to Hannah's death. Members of the jury, even if you aren't convinced today that Kai Conley placed the noose in Hannah's locker that night, there is no dispute on either side of the case as to whether or not she intentionally inflicted emotional distress on Hannah Lannister. But I want to remind you of that final insult. Hannah Lannister spoke to you from the grave today. She told you with her own words, Kai is killing me every single day. You heard of the straw that broke the camel's back? Well, this is the straw that broke Hannah's heart, ladies and gentlemen. And that final insult was the noose hanging in her locker, around the neck of a stuffed animal with her jersey number written on it. And she died that way. She died with that final insult staring her in the face. No one should ever have to die that way. And you can change it today with your verdict. We're going to ask you to award punitive damages today. We can't bring Hannah back, but you as the jury have the opportunity to send a message to Kai, to ensure that Kai Conley never takes these actions against another human being ever again. You as the jury have the opportunity today to send a message to Kai and the rest of the Winchester community that bullying is not accepted in a civilized society. You as the jury have the opportunity to ensure that no one dies the way Hannah Lannister did ever again. Use your opportunity. Find Kai Conley liable.
May I proceed, Your Honor? Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the jury, today you heard one set of facts and you heard two different stories. While we understand that Jesse Lannister is grieving and that he may be looking for someone to blame for his daughter's untimely death, Kai Connolly is not the straw that broke the camel's back. The straw that broke the camel's back was Hannah Lannister's undiagnosed and untreated heart condition. My name is Morgan Meyer, and my co-counsel and I have shown you today that the plaintiff's allegations of intentional infliction of emotional distress and the wrongful death of Hannah Lannister are not true. Today you heard Jesse Lannister testify that nearly every day he asked Hannah how she was doing, and he never heard any negative things. Hannah never complained. And Cameron Myers, the only medical professional in court today that personally knew Hannah Lannister, testified that there was nothing medically concerning about Hannah in the weeks leading up to her death. Nothing that was bad enough to pull her from a game. In fact, by all accounts, Hannah just seemed like a regular teenage girl. This is not synonymous with symptoms related to stress-induced cardiomyopathy. However, even if we were to entertain the idea that stress played a role in Hannah Lannister's death, it is impossible to conclude that Kai Connolly caused the stress that led to it. Members of the jury, as you heard Miss Connolly testify today, whenever she spoke to Hannah, she was merely joking around, trying to support her position on the basketball team, include her in her group of friends by speaking to her the way that she spoke to everyone. Is the language harsh? Yes. But it does not warrant legal action. It doesn't mean that Kai caused Hannah's death. Members of the jury, Jesse Lannister pushed Hannah to train every single day of her summer in order for her to make the basketball team. Hannah couldn't escape the weight of her father's expectations. Hannah couldn't escape the stress of Alex Snow's death and the failed memorial concert. Hannah couldn't escape the stress of balancing basketball in school, and Hannah couldn't escape the stress of other students bullying and teasing. But members of the jury, Dr. Penn Everett testified today that in spite of all of this stress, without the presence of a noose in Hannah Lannister's locker, she would still be with us today. On her bullying report form, Hannah Lannister mentioned that multiple students were teasing and harassing her. But Val Gray only brought evidence to court today that she only investigated, only punished, and only suspended one student, and that was Kai Connolly. She brought no evidence to prove that she investigated anyone on the basketball team, anyone who would actually have had access to the locker room that night, anyone that could have actually placed the noose in Hannah's locker. Kai Connolly couldn't have. You heard her testify today that she wasn't on the basketball team. She didn't have access. Members of the jury, Penn Everett said that this noose was the direct cause of Hannah Lannister's death. But let's listen to the facts about Hannah's death. As you heard Dr. Drew Ellis testify today, Hannah's lack of symptoms was consistent with sudden, unexpected death. And as she explained, based on the unbiased autopsy report that was entered into evidence, Hannah couldn't have died from the noose because the night of her death, she walked into the locker room, opened her locker, and had the time to put on her sweatpants after seeing the noose before suffering a sudden and unexpected death. You heard one set of facts, and you heard two different stories. But the facts don't support the plaintiff's story. Please consider the truth presented today and find Kai Connolly not liable for intentional infliction of emotional distress and the wrongful death of Hannah Lannister. Thank you.
Your Honor. May I ask how much time I have remaining before I proceed?
You may.
Exactly 20.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was the time factor left?
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
Briefly.
Ladies and gentlemen, as the defense so eloquently pointed out to you today, one set of facts, two stories. Kai tried to tell you that she was a friend of Hannah Lannister. You're a walking joke. Get off the court, get off the team. Remember, H, to just hang in there. Does that sound like a supportive friend to you, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you.
It is my honor to announce the best attorney and best witness for each team. I'm going to do that next. I will then give thanks to people that we need to recognize and acknowledge. In fact, I still don't know which team won. Although I am told that the winner is from Owasso. Because of the hour, it was decided that the individual judges are not going to be making comments. Everybody was impressed with the presentations, and they've all voted. I didn't have a vote. They all voted on best attorney and best witness, and here are the results. Best attorney on the prosecution plaintiff was Maggie Murphy. You gotta wait for the picture. Best witness for the plaintiff prosecution, Sierra Locker as Miss Dr. Wait for the picture. She's our face person for the dog. For the defense, best attorney, Katie Turner. For the defense, best witness, Dr. Ellis Emily Carr. I do have some people that we do need to thank. First of all, we'd like to thank the Young Lawyers Committee or the division. They're the ones who are responsible for this competition. We would like to thank the Oklahoma Bar Association for the support. In particular, we'd like to thank the Oklahoma Bar Foundation because they fund 100%, they fund this program. And so we really need to thank them as well. We have not in the past, but this year we're going to thank, we always kind of seem to forget, but this year I'd like to thank all of the attorneys and the judges who helped out this year. And last but not least, I would like to thank who I call Mrs. Program, Judy Spencer, for all she did. We were all impressed with the job that was done by everybody. And so you have our expressed statement of appreciation. How are we going to do the giving out of the trophies?
I will announce it.
I turn this over.
In second place, Team Heisenberg, teacher coach Kathy Rutherford, attorney coach Judge Deidre O. Dexter, Members: Emily Carr, Preston Dunbar, Maggie Hazelrig, Sam Lee, Ronan Locker, Morgan Meyer, Kennedy Patterson, Logan Schofield, and Katie Turner. And representing Oklahoma and Athens, Georgia, later on, is Team Quadstone. Teacher Coach Captain Adrian Kendall, Sierra Locker, Maggie Murphy, and Cole Weirick.